So many executive leaders are just struggling to kind of wrap their brains around how to do AI, and budget for it strategically. Because they're like, well, we want to be the early adopters, we want to get the competitive advantage, but do we just throw money at tools or
Mhm.
not? If you create a culture that's AI ready, then invest in AI, the return on that investment goes up more and more.
All right. I am so excited about this conversation today. You and I have been talking about this and the things that we're out there seeing in the marketplace. And I love that we're able to provide a solution for people that are trying to figure out and navigate this going into 2025. It's so crazy to be thinking about 2025 already.
I know it's wild. But this really is budget season right now. And what we've just found is so many executive leaders are just struggling to kind of wrap their brains around how to do AI, and budget for it strategically. Because they're like, well, we want to be the early adopters, we want to get the competitive advantage, but do we just throw money at tools or
Mhm.
not? And then you and I were talking and seeing some of the challenges with some of the tool adoptions,
Mhm.
even like Microsoft Copilot, where there's being money put at it, but it doesn't feel like it's solving a real business problem, and that also is making people worried or uncertain.
And you're so right when you start talking about tools, because I think that's an easy place for people to start. They're like, oh, well, the tools are going to cost me X multiplied by 400 employees. But what they forget is all the other aspects that they need to consider. So, which I think, dives us right into, our next topic is like, where should they start? What should they consider beyond the tools when they're thinking about budgeting for AI?
Let's call it like the tale of the three opportunities and like a wise investor, right? So let's say this wise investor has 8 gold coins that they are trying to decide between these three opportunities, or let's say 100 opportunities. They've narrowed it down to three, and they're trying to decide how do they really allocate for 2025. Now, what the media and everything is out says option three, that's where you should put everything in it, because one gold coin will create 1,000 gold coins. So put all your gold coins, you're all eight in that one place, and you're going to have crazy returns. Um, but people have been doing that. I'm saying this first one is AI, and they're not getting the returns they're
Mhm.
expecting. The other two opportunities, the first one is data, processes, and infrastructure. Because, AI has to use data, it has to follow processes. So that's kind of the first opportunity. The second opportunity is people. People
Mhm.
have to be upskilled, and people also had to feel like AI is going to come alongside as a partner and not a replacer. So values and culture, and that's another investment that's needs to be
Mhm.
made. So what I found, so of these three opportunities, right? You have this wise investor, they've got their 8 gold coins. They need to think about how to put probably 5 gold coins in data,
Mhm.
process, infrastructure, 2 gold coins, and specifically people related to upskilling and culture and things like that. And then 1 gold coin in actual AI tools and technology and proof of
Mhm.
concept, right? So this is an analogy I want to use because the only way you're going to get that 1,000 coin return on the AI is if you're actually investing in those
Yep.
other things first.
I love it. I love it. It's so good and it's so true, right? We get the calls. You and I always get the calls of, what tool should I use? I'm like, wrong question, right? Like, let's figure out what are you trying to achieve and what's the best approach to get there. And navigating human behavior is a big thing, right? It's change management. I always say, for those that listening, I always say, like, go dust off the Who Moved My Cheese book. This is a huge change management. And you're so right when you're talking about people and process and technology. From a people standpoint, we have to meet people where they are. And that is a big, big thing that I'm seeing day in and day out, especially when I get to be over like setting side by side with someone and watching them do their first prompt or watching them, figure something out in their organization. I'm always having like these little aha moments of like, oh, like you're using this like Google. Like that's not,
Right.
like so really understanding. And I love that your approach on ROI. You and I always are like, what's the ROI? What's the ROI? Yes, productivity is ROI, but there's also deeper level. Can you speak to that a little bit more? Because you do it so well.
Yeah. Yeah, happy to. So, return on investment, there's kind of two key components I want to highlight. There's return on capital, which is
Mhm.
actually how much investment, how much capital expenditure, how much you put in. What's the return on that specifically? But there's also return on purpose. And the return on purpose is how well are we aligning to our vision, our mission, our values. So return on capital is more of the, 1 year, 3 year type of goal. It's more of a short-term goal. Obviously, the board is looking for that, investors are looking for that. You got to pay people, right? But it's more of a short-term indicator. Return on purpose, which is really linked to what was the company do best? What is it meant to do? Are people actually doing the thing that they do best? That's actually more of a longer-term indicator how well the company is going to be successful, or the organization, nonprofit, government as well. So you have to actually look at both of those components when you're creating a return on investment calculation with AI. So some of it is you're going to get the quick wins, right? So they're low hanging fruit. You got to get those quick wins and proof of concepts
Mhm.
for things. But you also have to look at it from a longer term perspective. And like I said, if you take the 8 gold coins approach, 5 here, 2 here, one here, initially it's going to be a lot more on the data process
Mhm.
infrastructure, people,
Yeah.
and that might be a double return or a triple return. It's not 100 time return. It's not 1,000 time
Mhm.
return,
Mhm.
but the more you mature that, and by the way, people, process, technology, data, that's actually what a culture is made
Yes.
up of. So culture is the combination of those things. If you create a culture that's AI ready, then invest in AI, the return on that investment goes up more and more. Yeah, finding the right use cases at the right time that people are
Mhm.
ready for, the organization's ready for. There's a lot of that piece that has to come into play as well. You might have 100 use cases, but maybe five are the right ones to start, and the
Mhm.
others are a year from now, 3 years from now.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So where would you recommend organizations, kind of look at and document or find like, success stories or, uncovering, some of those use cases and being able to prioritize?
The best way to look is even at previous digital transformation initiatives. So, from an overall change standpoint for an organization, you can actually look at past disruptive technologies and see how they went well.
Hmm.
Another one is looking at AI use cases, specifically, I think, for like lower hanging fruit of common things people are doing every day in marketing, well, especially marketing and sales, I would say,
Hmm.
revenue drivers, and
Hmm.
then operations as well,
Yeah.
going to either conferences or community things like Since AI for Humans that we help lead together and such, and industry specific use cases. That's really, I think, where people are finding the wins, and we're helping them as well find those
Mhm.
wins too.
Always starting just with the objective of what are you trying to accomplish, and
Exactly, the
then figuring
problem.
out like we always talk about like I think there's a lot of organizations out there they're just overwhelmed because you've got AI development companies, you have AI risk and governance companies, you have AI just consulting, AI training and coaching, AI implementers like that are going to actually implement like Copilot. And so I think too organizations get really overwhelmed with there's so many types of AI business consulting, and they get really overwhelmed pretty quickly with that. So that really dovetails into what you're talking about of those organizations finding out what you're trying to accomplish, what's the right AI partner for you to help you navigate this. And I know you and I were talking about, I was in a room full of, there was, I don't know, 25, 26 IT leaders, and they were all like, hey, AI has been dumped in our lap, but we don't know where to
Yes.
start. We are
Yeah.
not pros at AI yet. And so that's really where those AI partners being able to come and surround that individual. And what was really interesting too, what I heard in that room was they feel like AI is like another thing on their list, right? So maybe they've got 53 projects, but it feels like another thing on the list. But I always kind of like to challenge people like, no, 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 it's not another thing. It actually will help you get that other 52 list done.
So true. I love that you bring up that example because I think a lot of the weight and responsibility of AI has been put on technology leaders. And what I found fascinating is they're just learning as
Yeah.
much as the C-level leadership is, almost at the same pace. But traditionally, technology, give it to IT, right?
Mhm.
For the first time, because AI is natural language processing, so you can talk to it, you can type to it, you can interact with it. Non-technical leaders are really see the possibility, and they're getting involved in the process. So there's collaboration and like in between C-level and IT like never before. However, it is a little bit of the blind leading the blind, right? They're everyone's
Yes.
trying to figure it out, and it just feels like, as you said, another project. And if
Mhm.
there's not a strategic approach that here's the problems we're business problems we're actually solving versus
Mhm.
let's do this tool because everyone's doing it and it's cool.
Yeah.
The,
Mhm. Mhm.
the technology leaders need that support just as much as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well said. Well said. So is there any common either mistakes or misconceptions when it comes to, AI and the ROI of AI or budgeting AI?
I think people think that the ROI, the return on investment, will be really fast, like
Hmm.
today. And there are some things,
Hmm.
micro tasks, and public tools that are out there, like transcriptions and social media, marketing, and content, things like that. The ROI is there, like very quickly. However, once it gets into some of the deeper business processes or operations or analytics or prediction, it takes longer to get there. So I think people realizing like 3 years for a little bit of a deeper AI is investment is a realistic
Yeah,
time
yeah.
frame to get that return on investment and a return on purpose. So keep that in mind. You're going to want to get the quick wins, yes, and it will
Hmm.
probably take 3 years for the other one. So do you have the stomach for that? That's an important question to actually ask
Yeah.
yourself. Um,
That's and that risk, right? Like some people have an appetite for risk and others don't, right? So there's also that scale of risk of, what do you want to look at as that, over those years, and how quickly do you want to move, and with that in place of understanding the risk and concerns there too. Yeah, yeah.
One other common challenge I've seen is people see, again, AI is a technology thing.
Hmm.
It is a technology. AI is going to change and evolve even faster
Yeah.
than it has in the past 2 years, which is wild to think about. So, therefore, the problem of the business problem of AI is actually not just the technology, it
Mhm.
is the cultural, philosophical elements so that you're ready to go. And I think that's the piece that, especially, I think mid-sized organizations, which is who we work with often,
Mhm.
they have to make sure they're taking that approach now. If
Yeah.
you've got the fundamentals right, then even as the technology changes, you can adopt and kind of future proof yourself with it.
Mhm. Yes, definitely, definitely. So if people are just getting started, right, to integrating AI, is there any kind of little piece of advice that you would give those mid-sized leaders as they're just getting started?
I would say the first thing is to find the problem you actually want to solve. Don't just throw money at it because it's a shiny object.
Yes, yeah,
And usually to
yeah.
define the problem, you have to actually understand what AI is in the first place. So you have to get educated on that piece. So the education first, and then defining the
Mhm.
problem, and then coming up with that strategic budget that
Mhm.
goes across the whole organization. And then finally measure, called How to Strategically Budget for AI in 2025. So feel free to find that. We'll probably link this in the post or in the video. Check that out. And we're also even working on a return on investment ROI calculator too. That might be a helpful resource. And find someone that can guide you through that process.
Go read the blog posts, and I love that you're going to build an ROI calculator. I love that. I know you guys have a formula of how you approach it and lay it over year, which is awesome. But then being able to build out a calculator for that too, so people can kind of plug and play their own numbers. But I think it's well written, and the fact that you've got so many people knee deep in doing the work, and very very strategic work with very large organizations, and you're bringing that level of knowledge to the mid-size market. So
Yes.
that I think is huge, because I feel like a lot of consulting firms out there are very focused on, like, we only want to work with companies that spend $1 million and above, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with it. But there's so much work and so much opportunity, and I always have a heart for the small to mid-sized firms because they tend to be underserved. And being able to have partners like you that can say, look, hey, in all these companies that we've been working with, here's the areas where there was opportunity. Here's the pitfalls that you need to be mindful of, and how do we navigate that? And so you and your team do a fantastic job, of that as well. So,
Here's a secret that we both know as well is it's actually the small to mid market because of AI that holds the key to grow and sustain even faster than a lot of larger
mhm,
companies because they're innovative, they're
yeah,
community driven, there's still trust there.
mhm,
So there's so many of the elements that are just ready, like just ready to go, and the ability to scale if they're able to kind of crack the code here.
and I was shocked. They're like, of
Wow.
the Fortune 500s, only 51 of them still exist.
Mm,
And because those companies couldn't move. So you can look at, Kodak and Blockbuster and Radio Shack and, those companies. So being mindful, of that this isn't something to wait around and stick your head in the sand. So
well
awesome.
said.
Thank you for this conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Kendra. This is so fun. Let's do more.
Yes, definitely.